405,303 minutes, 116,100 miles is how it began during my childhood on the rocky roads and rural routes of Madison County. As the scenery slowly scrolled by on my twice daily commute to school on a distinguishable yellow school bus. Who knew this seemingly mundane routine would provide an influence even many years later? Witnessing the landscape that is part of Arkansas's history, places of remembrance and importance, cemeteries with gravestones as early as the 1800s, marked only with rocks, alongside faded white clapboard room schoolhouses and churches, places where I visited on Decoration Day and heard many a hymn at singings and church services I attended with my parents and family. The red dirt roads were dotted with agrarian architecture, barns designed and built by local farmers, two significant structures designed by iconic architects located on Governor's Hill, which all ties into the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and buildings in the chapters to follow. So, this long ago tale of trails is what leads me to welcome you all to the Rocky Road to Historic Preservation. And hello, in case you didn't catch it, I'm Melissa Dysart and serve as the marketing manager for Level 5 Architecture, a full-service architectural design firm that can assist on any type of commercial project from concept to key, focused on municipal and government building types, offering comprehensive support from start to finish by demystifying the design process step by step. Now, how did my rocky adventure begin? Well, you might want to hear a little more backstory. As the daughter of dairy and poultry farmers, I was raised in picturesque Madison County, Arkansas, a rural area where dirt roads, rotary phones, and wood-burning stoves still exist. A cornbread and beans kind of culture, where I was taught the necessity of sustainability and self-sufficiency by way of growing and preserving our own food. Yes, I bottle-fed calves, gathered eggs, broke beans, and stacked firewood. I absolutely loved farm life and learned many a lesson and work ethic from that type of lifestyle. As part of the greatest generation, my parents taught or tricked me into the appreciation for the past. Now, was it ever thought of as historical preservation? Nope, it was as simply part of our culture, holding on to the past so it was preserved for future generations. Examples of this encompassed a variety of activities, like a little Sunday pilfering, where Mama would excavate pictures, quilts, and other treasures to share their stories, like Aunt Dolly and her long-ago log cabin located on the 20. These lessons continued during decoration and Memorial Days, where family and friends would gather to visit, decorate, and preserve a sense of place, along with pilgrimages to cemeteries around the area, where we'd visit the gravestones of loved ones long lost. My parents' love for all things old had us travel down the cultural rabbit hole, from the musical realm and lyrics of forgotten hymns to the knowledge of how things used to be made, like sorghum milled using mules. As a kiddo, this was witnessed firsthand at places like Mountain View and the Ozark Folk Center State Park and Harbor Village Museum. Oh, and a fun fact, my uncle's buggy is a part of the permanent exhibit at Shalom Museum of Ozark History. As technology leaps forward at lightning speed, it lends us to believe the ways of old have all passed. But the good news is that some still remain and can be witnessed at the 20, a place where I call home, where the land is still tilled, planted, and harvested, and hay is cut. And no, this land is not vacant, available for sale. Rather, it is a vital cog in the ecosystem and food production as a small farm, where on hot summer days, you can catch the baler going round and round the field and experience the scent of fresh cut hay. With an agrarian Arkansas upbringing, I represent the rural route and kitchen table taught Ozark preservationists and farmers of the past, present, and future. Now, You may be asking, where did it all begin? How did I end up here? After all, the journey is far more interesting than the destination because it was more blueprints and blue collared when I ventured into my chosen career field. Upon graduating from a vocational program for architectural drafting technology, I traveled to the frozen tundra of Alaska for a 2-week vacation, but stayed for 2 years.
I'm at the 36th Iditarod, where a record 96 teams will be racing almost 1,100 miles from Anchorage to Nome.
Where working at Mike Menn's Architects was quite an educational start, as I was fully immersed in the construction industry, from drafting house plans off as-built to creativity by designing and building signage. That may have included colorful fish we painted and hung in a grocery store. To marketing with planning of luncheons and AIA conferences, those tasks covered anything from research on Quonset huts to coordinating transportation to ski resorts. Even the exploration into city planning was included in the workaday syllabus for my role as a drafter. For Main Street Soldotna, a multi-day immersive event brought together industry experts, key stakeholders, and locals alike as we explored the city's future through an interpretive art and planning scripts. Lastly, an initial introduction into the world of adaptive reuse and preservation, where we explore the potential transformation of an old, abandoned radio station into a private residence. Next, it was wheels up as I returned to Arkansas and became involved with the structural side of construction. Within this discipline, it's all numbers and formulas, where I spent much of my career as a BIM technician and CAD manager at Tatum Smith Welchers Engineers. There I helped to construct and design the bones of buildings. Perhaps you've seen some of these structures, from artistic installation of Bucking Vaqueros at Crystal Bridges, to complex superstructures and rockin' Walmart amps. And this world of engineering brings a different layer of complexity to historic preservation projects. One example is the Walmart Heritage Museum and Walton's Five and Dime, an 1800s era building. With structural multi-wide brick and creaking wood joists as the main structure, the notion of hauling Sam's '79 Ford F-150 to the third floor came into question. So, if you've taken notice of this slide photo, you will easily conclude the answer to that quandary. Then, for Frank Lloyd Wright's Bachman-Wilson House, the entire structure had to be disassembled piece by piece, destined for its home at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, where structurally the new steel and concrete had to meet up exactly with the 1956 wood framing. Oh, and forget dimensions and measurements. Wright utilized a unique grid system to lay out all of his buildings. Needless to say, there were a few specialized conditions that required an unusual and out-of-the-box detailing, which is what makes this mid-century modern building such a treasure. Now, get ready to connect the dots and the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Perched atop the hill was the Faubus Mansion, designed by Arkansas architect Fay Jones, an impressive example of mid-century modern architecture that didn't quite register for a bus kid riding to and from school every day. But the connection continues to Gavin Chapel in Hot Springs, a design of Maurice Jennings and David McKee, who also worked for Fay Jones. This chapel was my introduction to the unique use of the grid system for drafting and dimensions. Gained knowledge for this specialized system came into play again for the Bachman-Wilson House, where the house was disassembled piece by piece in New Jersey and relocated to Crystal Bridges, creating quite the puzzle for the structural engineering team, where I drafted a new foundation for the building. With its home at the museum, this represents a historically significant new landmark from the iconic architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. And the last connection of the give or take 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and buildings, Faubus to Wright. From bus to Bachman, as the daughter of a farmer, I went from watching landmarks speed by to rebuilding them in collaboration with famed architects. Oh, the roads we get to travel. At Level 5 Architecture, we love all things dusty and a little bit rundown because part of our firm's mission is to enrich growing communities. One way to do that is by embracing the buildings of old that have seen much better days. Because when a downtown dies, the rest of the town bears that burden and the negative effects. However, with the right partners and key stakeholders, grant and procurement pursuits can help slow down the regression of an area by providing funding, a key challenge with many historically important projects. As years and decades pass, some things old must progress with the new, and preservation for all things historic, notwithstanding required code compliance, egress standards, and ADA accessibility. Safety as well as safeguarding the past. This is the type of balanced approach Level 5 took for the Winkler County Courthouse renovations. Conservation efforts and amenities included exterior AD access to the courthouse, thereby preserving access for all. And by taking a strategic approach to those special places that are run down and on the verge of actually falling down, master planning is another avenue to or officially preserve history, and that special something that defines the character of a place. For example, take a line of out of the business stores in an abandoned building. Cleaning up and restoring those long ago covered up features like brick detailing and added missing canopies can turn an eyesore into an asset. But what about the one unit in the middle where the roof has completely caved in? Well, flip the script. Make that disadvantage work for a revitalization project by turning the unusable space into something new, perhaps a pocket park, thereby taking the path of restoration and adaptation rather than demolition. In turn, it can be a boost for the community. After all, new construction cannot capture the feeling of nostalgia and culture the way a well-worn and loved location can. Replica and machine materials are just missing that special something, the one thing that cannot be captured: time. With history located in my own backyard, it became my mission to save this storied structure. However, rehabilitating and repairing a log barn with extensive structural issues was quite a project. After all, there are many hindrances to preservation, which can include anything from time and money to contractors and materials. The lean-to had long ago fallen down and required reconstruction. 99% of the red clay chinking between the logs was missing and needed to be filled in. Plus, we had to step carefully or risk falling in where the existing floor joists required shoring. However, it was easy to see that the challenges would far outweigh the reward for this adaptive reuse project, turning an old barn into an art studio. Fading knowledge of historical methods, precision trades, and honed craftsmanship layers another level of complexities to the repair process. However, Madison County has many hidden treasures, and I was able to tap into one such resource. Glenn Clark, a jack of all trades who is a stickler for preserving the old, and has created his own oasis of history in his backyard, from a reconstructed log cabin and a grown-up's treehouse to an iconic wood bridge of Madison County. He tackled the project with a keen eye for historic designs and preservation by keeping character with a new door built behind the old one for charm, and sourcing materials locally, from faux rafters milled from cedars on my land at his timber mill to antique tin ceiling from the farming variety that was hand-selected from my parents' old chicken houses, a place where I spent many childhood times gathering too many eggs to count.
Let me show you how I do this.
Yeah, we need to get a Chinkin tutorial here.
Right. That's still a little wet. No matter how careful you are, you get it on the logs.
Besides the challenge of finding a contractor, they had to be knowledgeable in construction methods from the last century. Luckily, Glenn had this tool in his tool belt as well, and passed along the means and method of log cabin building, including chinking, which I tried my hand out, troweling and filling in the gaps between the logs. Now, I may need to place an asterisk in this section because the preservation guidelines and goals of my barn project are primarily for sentimental reasons only. Would I have loved to get this barn registered? You betcha. And I explored that road, reaching out to the Division of Arkansas Heritage and Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. Holly Hope, their special projects historian.
I'm Holly Hope, Special Projects Historian with the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and I'm here to document this adaptive reuse of a barn. It's very exciting to me to see it preserved and to still see the integrity from its origins.
She traveled the dusty dirt road to my homestead, braved the tall grass and dusty cobwebs to scope out the structure for an architectural resource survey. Although my barn is not listed, the survey is a tool for protecting historic resources and contributing to a repository of historical information. And I appreciated her visit and the wealth of knowledge on the subject. Holly is a fabulous resource that I discovered through her Women in Preservation session. What a great series, along with others like Shiloh Museum of the Ozarks and their informative events on log cabin restorations. Therefore, I try not to miss a single session with these organizations. After all, the history of place is a powerful concept, and preservation is key. So, this barn will never be officially listed and doesn't meet the criteria to do so. However, that does not invalidate the importance of this project. But remember, this project is more about the preservation of my family's history, not official registrations. Sometimes the important places to capture are tied, more importantly, to people and their stories.
Okay, so what year were you born and where were you born at then?
June 28, 1924.
And Daddy was born in 1917, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and so were you born, where were you born at? Were you born at in the house over, where you used to live, or what house was it?
You lived over in a house that stayed in there.
Did you get any, were you awarded any type of military recognition for your being wounded?
I got a Purple Heart.
You got a Purple Heart?
Piece of shrapnel right in here against my jugular vein. Almost got me.
A highlight of this preservation project was the day my 99-year-old uncle sat in the restored barn sharing stories of place, when it was the Joyner homestead from his childhood, telling a story about the workings of the farm and the water ram, and how a bit of modern technology was captivating for a kid of a farming family in the early 1900s.
It looked like it had a bigger one here than this. Well, I think it was a barn back behind it here at one time.
I don't know. I know that they used to say that there was a log cabin on here that was taken apart and moved, I thought, over to Siler's, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that was Aunt Dolly's old house, because I know they used to talk about.
There's a bigger barn than this here.
Yeah.
They might have moved on over to the Harbor Village too.
This don't look.
Yeah.
This don't look real old.
Now this is old here. You can see those hack marks in it.
For the ram that was down in the holler, do you know who put the ram in? Or was it just always there, the water ram?
The ram was there. And like several years ago, me and then the wind rolls, I've been a coon hunting. And we come up through there, and we heard something going, and there's that ram running. See, they made a thumping noise or I don't know.
Sadly, one day we will all be gone, and the barn will be as well. But some stories will have been preserved forever. And that is why it's important for everyone to contribute, in their own way, to historical preservation, so that these people and places don't fade into extinction. Alongside my paid gig of architecture is a side hustle residing in the artistic realm. Currently, I'm working on a digital art series, The Extinction of the Rural Entrepreneur. It focuses on the disappearance of businesses and highlights the loss of food production and self-sufficiency. The series reflects upon the loss of farms and the farming industry as urbanization spreads across the state of Arkansas, along with the entire United States. Through the lens of photography and graphic design, a continual count of fading farms is documented as not to lose the significance of rural entrepreneurship and agrarian architecture. The first cooler of the series has been filled with 50 farms, and other coolers are waiting to be stocked, over 200 and counting. A stark glimpse into the process of progress as it relates to farming, food insecurity, as well as the loss of history. Now, it's not all gloom and doom, so let's take a look at some positives. Although many buildings are long gone, the memories last forever. And rather than saying, remember the old Mayfield store that used to be there? With a quick snapshot, a simple photograph can capture these places before they disintegrate into dust and fade away. Because anyone of any educational background or cinematic ability can capture these places. Yes, we'd love to save them all, but that is not reality. So, think about how you can lend a hand to the historic preservation movement with your specific talents. And while we capture these memories, new ones are being made. Just ask my dog Ollie. He's a huge proponent of historic preservation and car rides with the windows down. Origin stories begin in unusual places, in this case being farm raised as a kid absorbing knowledge through their environment by pure observations, where daddy was always tinkering, fixing or building anything, while mama gardened and canned, quilted and crocheted, they were always accomplishing chores by hand. And this kinesthetic action was the outlet for processing thoughts. It was and is the perfect approach for those who learn best by doing, a way to get those creative juices flowing. Which leads us to Tinkerization stations. And what the heck are they? A STEAM-led initiative for hands-on user experiences encompassing anything from building blocks in immersive play to drawing and doodling for artistic immersions. These stations have been utilized by Level 5 architecture and their philosophy that extends beyond mere business and into the community, where the firm has practiced the values of community enrichment and educational training through involvement with school programs and community events. Because we love to give back to the community however we can. Through STEAM educational initiatives and Tinkerization stations, we have collaborated with many entities, from the Amazium to youth camps for a variety of curated events. For the Fayetteville Farmers Market, it was all mystery and intrigue with the focus on historic preservation. As individuals of all ages sleuthed their way through the History Highway, defined the time on the historic places timeline, learned the anatomy of historic building, and navigated the big board of mysterious places. With mystery disguised dress-up, it was hard not to believe that Sherlock Holmes and Nancy Drew were on the case. After all, it's fun and games of historic proportions to get everyone interested in historic preservation. The future of the past we now hold in our hands. Where there's the positive preservation and protection, the negative counterpart exists in neglect and abandonment. Because buildings are inanimate creatures, but they require life to survive. When we cohabitate in these old and bygone days of glory structures, they thrive. It's when people move on and out of the structures, becoming vacant, they fail. Then the buildings fall victim to all the factors that can harm them, from the detriment of vandalism, nature and weather damage, to lack of maintenance. All these items get overlooked when a building sits empty. So let's discuss the parameters for preservation, because we can all act to save a special place. Start a conversation and discuss how these places can be preserved, even if it's not officially listed and registered. So don't sit idly by. Take action. Realistically, we cannot preserve every structure in place as an officially registered landmark, but we can try and continue the endeavor to save sacred places, making sure these special places are not forgotten, even if only through unofficial channels in our own personal journey of historic preservation. At the very least, by simply taking a photo, shooting a video, or capturing a story, anyone of any ability can document history, because you don't always need to have a degree to be a historian or preservationist. You just must possess a love of the past and all things old.